Vielen Dank, dass du dir die Zeit nimmst, ein Interview mit uns zu führen, Benjamin. Ich weiß, dein Terminkalender ist sehr, sehr voll. Wir sind extra aus Regensburg angereist und sind sehr glücklich, dass du ein Zeitfenster für uns gefunden hast. Benjamin, du bist Unternehmer, du bist Visionär, du leitest ein Milliardenunternehmen, du bist weltweit unterwegs. Dich kennen ganz viele Menschen auf dieser Welt. Aber für die Leute bei uns zu Hause in Deutschland, die dich nicht kennen, wer ist Beniamin Mincu? Was machst du?
Gute Frage. Ich glaube, das Lustige ist, dass ich die ganze Schule eigentlich in Deutsch gelernt habe. Also von Kindergarten bis zur Uni, alles habe ich in Deutsch gelernt. Das ist etwas, das nicht so bekannt ist jetzt. But maybe leaving this aside and switching a bit to English, I think there are many things that could be said, but the basic idea is that at some point I probably had some insights. I've spent most of my life reading some of the most interesting books in science, engineering, technology, and absorbing the state of the art in that respect. And then had some fundamental insights about, for instance, the scientific method being perhaps the most useful way of deducing truths about the world, discovering them. Then a kind of second fundamental insight was about technology, that it was through technology that we could perhaps have the largest impact on the world. And then it almost seemed like entrepreneurship was the distillation of all the interesting stuff in science, technology, engineering, and you could just, if you would put all the energy in it, combine it to build something that was never built and so forth. So these insights, of course, over time brought us to where we are now. We've tried many things, and through trial and error, we've basically discovered some things that we believe work really well at this point. But yeah, I guess this paints a bit of a picture, at least, of what we're trying to do.
Wenn wir jetzt in die Vergangenheit reisen, die Anfänge von dir, von Elrond, was hat dich dazu bewegt, eine Vision zu begleiten, eine Vision anzustoßen? Wie hast du dein Team motiviert? Du hast ja was Bahnbrechendes auf die Füße gestellt. Wie waren die Anfänge? Gab es Schwierigkeiten, Hindernisse oder hat jeder die Türen aufgemacht und gesagt, Benjamin, willkommen?
No, I do think that it's always super difficult at the start. Whatever you're doing, it will be difficult and tricky and challenging. It was the same for us. In fact, for most of the time, blockchain technology has not been understood. It was viewed in the wrong kind of light and so forth. But the most important point is that what we are building, we believe will have a very, very fundamental and high societal impact on the world. And it's because of that that we can basically not sleep, not eat, and just push forward. And the thing is that it's not just me. Of course, we've gathered a team with which we say that we can literally build rockets, and we mean that. And the rest is just pushing through the hell of actually building the ideas that we have. We've brought some fundamental insights with a paper that we've published at the beginning. There was a lot of discussion about this being near impossible when we presented it, but then gradually and systematically we went through the process of building the architecture, validating the core hypothesis, and then reaching the point where this is not only working, but it's essentially the most advanced blockchain architecture in the world.
Ja, beeindruckend, beeindruckend. Wenn wir aus der Vergangenheit jetzt in die Gegenwart, in das Hier und Jetzt reisen, wie schaut dein Alltag jetzt aus? Womit beschäftigst du dich? Was machst du? Worauf legst du sehr viel Wert?
I would say that the pace at which we move forward is astounding. I mean, for most of the people and most of the companies, this would be near crazy. So a lot of the things that we have to do have to do with the speed. The faster you want to go, the more difficult it is to manage different things. And so we want to keep the speed and keep the highest quality at the same time. We have several products that we're working on, both on the architecture, on the Meyer product, and several others that are happening at the same time. So most of the day is usually focused on just pushing forward with the products, making sure that we're on track, there's nothing blocking us, seeing if there are some interesting or important things that need to be discussed and touched on, syncing with the teams, and then making sure that we move some mountains. But you'll have to work smart, hard, and super long hours. And you cannot choose 2 out of 3.
Okay.
So we might end up having calls after midnight and still pushing things forward and so forth. And this is how it looks when you're essentially doing something that you really love and where you see the impact.
Okay, auf jeden Fall ein Herzensprojekt.
Ja.
Definitiv. Was ist das Besondere an Elrond? Es gibt so viele Kryptowährungen auf dem Markt. Was zeichnet Elrond aus? Was ist deiner Meinung nach das Unique, das ganz Besondere, damit die Leute das draußen verstehen?
I would say that generally we're at a point where blockchain technology will probably bring about a super cycle for the local economies and global economy. And so just as how we've seen with the internet changing the entire structure of the world gradually, we're probably going to see the same with blockchain technology. But in order for this to happen, we essentially need 2 things. One is a transition from dial-up to broadband. Just as in the early days of the internet, you have the technology, it's clear that it has this super high potential, but if you cannot scale, if the performance is not there for businesses to make economic sense, then you'll not be able to do this. So for the last 10 years, we've had the technology. It became clear how many interesting ideas you could build with the technology, but we've missed the fundamental performance that you really need to use the technology at scale. This is what Elrond brings on the one hand. So we've built a technology, a blockchain architecture that is more than 1,000 times faster and cheaper and more scalable than Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the other architectures. And at the same time, it seems that the second element that's really needed is a very significant UX improvement. So really deep simplicity applied on top of this groundbreaking technology, because for as long as people have to learn rocket science to interact with the technology, there will only be a handful of people that understand it, can relate to it, can use it. But when you have very simple application like the Meyer application, you will have millions and then tens of millions and hundreds of millions of people that can interact with the technology and use it. So to sum up, I think that we're at the dawn of a super cycle, and the next decade will be extremely interesting for all the global economic players. And it will be extremely important how they position themselves, how they take this opportunity, use it, and so forth. And Elrond comes with the tools and offers the tools both to governments, institutions, startups, businesses, and retail users around the world. And it's going to be extremely interesting to see how each of them decide to use the technology. But I would say that at this point, there's essentially no other architecture that's more advanced in the performance, utility, and UX aspects that the Elrond platform offers.
Ich denke mal, aus der Erläuterung sieht man schon, dass Elrond über kurz oder lang die Nummer 1 werden wird. Wenn wir jetzt über Projekte sprechen, du hast ein bisschen das Thema Projekte schon erläutert. An welchen Projekten arbeitest du mit deinem Team gerade? Und was mich persönlich interessiert, was ist dein Herzensprojekt? Was ist so dein Lieblingsprojekt? Möchtest du was dazu sagen?
So we're working on several projects, but we're always thinking, what's the most useful element that we could bring that would essentially accelerate everything that we've discussed in the previous question? Because if you see this very large wave coming, the question is not if it comes, but can we do something to accelerate the advent of this very large wave? And so on the one hand, we have the core Elrond architecture. This is extremely complex and extremely fascinating at the same time. There are countless smaller projects within the architecture, and the team is pushing things to the next level every day. And then at the same time, we have the Meyer application that brings this unique simplicity. And we've grown tremendously with Meyer, and there are some really cool things that are coming to Meyer that we've not yet discussed about. So we're quite excited about that. And then it seems there are some things that come for the immediate future and some other things that we're focusing on the medium longer term. For the immediate future, it's clear that the DeFi space with the Meyer DEX will be extremely important for the Elrond ecosystem and even beyond. We do expect this to be the most important growth engine for the next few months. Then the Meyer Launchpad will bring a lot of really cool startups and projects and so forth to the Elrond ecosystem, and will give these projects the possibility to raise money, to build a community, and then to share their products with the community in a meaningful way. And then even beyond that, we have an NFT platform that's coming live very, very soon. NFTs for artists will be the thing that, just as with the tech people discovering the tech startups, NFTs will be the tech startups for the artists. They will be all over it, and I do see that all the creative people will essentially sooner or later switch to these new tools that are much more effective in sharing ideas and economic upside with their communities. So this is for the shorter term. We also have some products that we've not discussed about publicly, so at some point we'll have a conversation about that as well. But if you look at it from the longer term, for the medium longer term, I think blockchain technology will essentially be the backbone for the global financial system. Everything we have in finance will move on top of the blockchain, just as applications have moved on the internet. There's no discussion about that. The only thing is how fast. Will it happen in 2 years, in 3 years, in 5 years? And this is an open question because it depends precisely on the tools we bring, on the approaches we have with the businesses and so forth. But there's a massive opportunity on the financial side. Then secondly, I do think that a lot of the innovation that will happen will start to be permissionless and open source. That is, people from anywhere in the world will be able to launch a startup, get the funding, present the idea to the world. As long as it has value, you'll be able to do this 10, 20 times faster than in any other ecosystem until this point. So the second major application would be bootstrapping really important technology ideas that have impact for the world. And then the third element, it seems that it will have to do with this crisis that we have right now. So you'll, with each new digital tool that we're creating, you'll be able to edit reality much more effectively to the point that where you'll not be able to tell what's real and what's fictional, what's digital. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it will become clear that, for instance, deep fakes, images, documents, and so forth, mm-hmm. all of this will be forged with such an ease that it will be scary. The only way you'll be able to remain sane and still discover the truth is if you have an anchor that can always and super clearly tell you that this is true, this is authentic, mm-hmm. and this is not. And I think blockchain is the only anchor that cannot be forged, and it will be applied to almost any document, any important idea that needs to have the authenticity stamp. So yeah, longer term things will become super, super interesting. And as Germany is and has been an engineering powerhouse, mm-hmm. I'm actually very, very curious to see how the startups there, how the government, how the institutions will look at this opportunity mm-hmm. and use it.
Mm-hmm. Das führt mich natürlich gleich zur nächsten Frage. CBDC, digitale Zentralbankwährung. Wie stehst du dazu? Chance, Risiko für die Gesellschaft, für die jetzige Gesellschaft? Tut sie euch damit auseinandersetzen? Wo siehst du da die Reise?
We have several discussions with governments around the world. Generally, again, if you think about things strategically, mm-hmm. it almost seems like the most important element that's sort of the path of least resistance that then changes the game completely is a stable coin that's backed by the government. Because it has nothing to do with the crypto part mm-hmm. at first, and because at the same time it uses blockchain technology, it almost solves or evades all the, let's say, obstacles, questions about what happens with crypto, legal implications, and so forth, and grants you all the benefits of building things on top of a blockchain. So we're super excited about something like this, have some discussions already with some banks and so forth about it, would very much encourage banks and central banks to look at things very carefully because there's a huge opportunity there. The thing is that once you understand that this is an opportunity, you want to use and build it on a platform that can scale and that has the operational resources to really give you the logistics of integrating merchants, of giving the users the possibility to use this stablecoin or currency, and giving the central bank an ability to have full transparency and to really work with these tools. Once you have something like this, you'll come very close to the point where we'll have essentially the possibility to almost instantly make transfers to almost anyone in the world at a trivial cost. For the entire economy, this is like switching from a bandwagon to the car, right?
Yep.
It's very, very fundamental, and it will bring about a lot of benefits. Mm-hmm. It's tricky, of course. There's a lot of discussions. There are some technical risks and legal risks and so forth. But as long as banks are curious and open to having the discussions, the solutions are here, and the upside is tremendous. So users win, banks can win, mm-hmm. and institutions, companies, and so forth have a much faster fluidity with everything related to finance once we switch to some system like this. We're quite excited about something like that, and we'll probably even have some projects on this respect. So we'll see how fast it can be rolled out.
Also ein sehr wichtiges Thema, was ihr vorantreibt und was auf jeden Fall für uns alle eigentlich sehr positiv wäre. Wenn ich jetzt einen Themenwechsel einfach mache, du hast vorhin Bitcoin gesagt, das ist so ein bisschen im Kopf hängen geblieben bei mir. Ich vergleiche oder in Bezug mit Bitcoin nehme ich den Elon Musk immer her. Der ist ja sehr aktiv in den Medien. Spürt ihr den auch, wenn ein Tweet kommt? Wie bewertest du das?
There are several ways you can approach this. Essentially, Musk is a cool guy. He's building really interesting stuff. So big respect for that. He's building actually something cool even in Germany, in Berlin, with the Gigafactory and so forth. He does have his quirks. So he might wake up a bit more excited in some days than the others, tweet something, and then the entire market will essentially react. We're not the way we're trying to approach this is focusing on the value and what we can build. We understand that over the medium and long term, the value will be where there's a product, where there's utility, where there's adoption. Over the short term, of course, things can be super irrational. Everything can change overnight, although nothing has changed on the product or on the adoption side. A tweet can change the entire market sentiment and so forth. So ideally, you don't want to put yourself in a position where you have to make decisions on the super short term. Of course, it's painful sometimes, or exciting and fun at other times. The great part is, though, that once you cross certain thresholds with market caps, with adoption and so forth, the effects of something like this are harder to feel. Of course, Musk is the ultimate mover of markets, so he'll be able to do stuff like that. But generally, as long as you're doing the most interesting things in the space with respect to technology, with respect to green energy, for instance, and so forth, because we've not touched on this, but Elrond, beside being very advanced in terms of performance and UX, it's also carbon negative. So fully carbon neutral, but then also something in addition to that to offset the entire carbon footprint on the environment and so forth. So to conclude, we try to position ourselves in a way where there's a distance between what's happening in the market right now and what we're trying to and aiming to build. Things can be super positive, but also super negative if you look too closely, right? The stock market and crypto market can be hyper reactive. I mean, when people get excited, they're excited to the point where it's super crazy, euphoric. Then when they're depressed, it's not a mild depression. It's like nothing is happening, nothing is working. And this type of states you usually see in people that you don't want to be too close to. So we're trying to be aware of this, manage this stuff, and mainly put all the focus on the product, on the value, adoption. Because if you zoom out, it's not this part that you'll remember. What becomes clear is, do you have adoption? Is the product really compelling and so forth? Well, from 1 week to another, from 1 month to another, from 1 year to another, you'll see a very, very interesting story there that's happening. And the tweets will just be, fun fireworks.
Okay.
Could be positive and more tricky.
Okay. Benjamin, du hast gerade das Thema Green erwähnt, Energiebilanz. Ich würde auch gern wieder zum Thema kommen. Es gibt ja zwei Möglichkeiten. Thema Mining, was viele kennen. Elrond hat sich ja auf Proof of Stake konzentriert. Und ich verbinde damit auch das jüngste Ereignis, wo man ja sehr stolz sein kann bei der Firma Elrond. Erklär uns doch, was ist Proof of Stake? Was ist Staking allgemein? Für wen ist Staking denn wichtig oder wäre interessant für die Kleinen?
Yes, so the idea is basically when you're looking at these architectures, you want to look at the performance first. And performance, for instance, for Bitcoin is around 7 transactions per second processing power. Then Ethereum around 15. Elrond can process at this point more than 15,000 and can scale beyond 100,000. This is extremely important because it ties to what I was mentioning before. On this, you can have adoption. Now, moving forward, the question is how do you get this type of resource capacity, processing capacity? There are several ways to achieving this. Bitcoin is built on proof of work. Proof of work is essentially just a mathematical puzzle that computers in that network have to solve every 10 minutes. For the solution for this mathematical puzzle, they receive a reward. Now, this has been a very interesting approach to achieving the processing power that Bitcoin has. But the question is, can we achieve something much better, much more efficient, with a fraction of the costs? This is where Elrond comes in, where we've not only thought about the processing capacity, which we've solved, but we've also found a way to do this thousands of times more efficient. And so there's a difference in terms of network processing power required by the Elrond network, Ethereum network, and Bitcoin network that's on the order of probably something like we're spending 36,000 times less than Bitcoin at this point. So this is a astounding number, hard to grasp at first.
Definitive.
But, and then perhaps something like 12,000 times less energy than the Ethereum network. But the essential part is not only that the processing is done in a very, very efficient manner, it's also done in a very secure manner. This is why we have this thing called secure proof of stake. You have a very efficient way to processing the transactions, but then it's also secure to the point where you cannot game the system. What I think is important for the users is what's happening when you do the staking part. Why is it efficient? And why can you contribute? How can you contribute to the network and then also earn some rewards? And the idea here is that when you have a decentralized network, in order for the network to process transactions and achieve security, the network puts out a bounty in terms of rewards. And the computers that are part of the network, they provide essentially the security to the network and the processing capacity. All these computers reap a part of the rewards. And so each user that's doing validation on the network, whether it's validators or delegators, they essentially contribute to the security and processing capacity. So then the interesting part for the user is not only that they contribute, but what can they earn in return. And so at this point, the delegation part and validation part are two very interesting ways for users to be part of the ecosystem. Validation is, of course, for the people that want to build a business around the ecosystem, build a community, and contribute to the entire ecosystem, and also provide these services. And delegation is essentially the way through which normal users can be part of this ecosystem and can receive upwards of 10, 12, 15% of interest, although we should not call it interest for legal reasons, probably. And be part of the network, grow with the network and contribute.
Und durch die Applikation Maya ist das bei Elrond extremst einfach, simpel, auch machbar. dass man diese Verzinsung, die Rewards in dem Fall, jeden Tag erhält. Und das ist ja wirklich was Einmaliges. Wie würdest du beschreiben, wir sind ja ein deutscher Staking-Anbieter, wir arbeiten ja zusammen mit euch. Wie würdest du die jüngste Vergangenheit mit uns beschreiben, aus deiner Sicht?
So I think Germany has a huge potential in terms of adoption when it comes to blockchain technology, applications, and even staking. And we've had several discussions, several experiences. Given your experience with Lucian and the connection and work and so forth, I think the collaboration has been very productive. I do think that in the next period, things can go 10 times to the next level. There's a lot of opportunity there, and we're quite excited to see how things will move forward in Germany. Happy to help in many ways, and also happy to see or the adoption that we're seeing with the partners you have, with the community you have. And yeah, it's super early, but the next period seems to be even more interesting than what we've seen until this point.
Wir sind sehr froh, auch ein Teil des großen Ganzen dabei zu sein. Die allerspannendste Frage für mich oder für die deutschen Zuschauer, die habe ich mir zuletzt aufgehoben. Wenn du was dazu sagen möchtest, die Vision, so die nächsten 5 Jahre, wo wird Elrond sein, wo möchtest du hin? Kannst du uns einen kleinen Ausblick darauf geben?
Yeah, so our goal with Elrond is to build the backbone for a high bandwidth, low latency, transparent financial system and give access to anyone, anywhere with this financial system. Of course, this cannot happen overnight, and it's a gradual process. But with Elrond, what we want to do is provide the infrastructure on top of which we can have a new digital financial system for the entire world, that through which people, whether it's central banks, governments, normal commercial banks, institutions, startups, and retail people, they all can tap in this network and make transfers almost instantly anywhere in the world at a trivial cost compared to what we have right now. And then secondly, through Maiar, we want to extend access to this new financial system to anyone in the world. There are more than 1.7 billion people that don't have any access to financial infrastructure. And it's not only important that developed countries have access, this is great, but then it's extremely important for these people to get a chance to also be part of this. And so these two elements, when you think about them, the question in our mind is what necessarily threshold do we have to reach so that this financial system becomes the default one. This is why we framed the idea as onboarding the next billion people, because we're at something like between 100 and 200 million people in the global crypto ecosystem at this point. But the idea is that once we reach the first billion people, this virtual economy becomes the default one. The implications of something like this is initially hard to grasp, but hard to overstate, because you'll probably during the next 5 to 10 years have crypto networks that have more influence, societal impact, and bring more benefits to people around the world than many countries. When you have the market cap of one such certain network exceed the GDP of, let's say, Germany, at that point you'll ask many interesting questions, like how are we going to live in that society? How will it look, and so forth? All these are super interesting questions. What I'm saying is that we'll probably during the next 5 to 10 years have several multi-trillion-dollar crypto networks that governments will be in, central banks will be in, corporate banks will be in, funds, institutions, businesses, startups, and retail people will all come in. And it will be Elrond's core goal to accelerate this process as much as possible, make it as smooth as possible, and offer the most advanced and useful tools to essentially see adoption in all the countries of the world. So yeah, by saying that we'll probably exceed $1 trillion market with several crypto networks, this has huge implications alone. By saying that we're having the goal of onboarding the next billion people, we're saying a bit about how we can reach those $1 trillion markets, how we'll see the impact and utility and so forth. And then in terms of applications, it's just about time for hundreds of startups, thousands of startups to start building on Elrond, leverage this entire architecture, and then millions of users to come in within Maiar and take this technology and use it in many creative ways that we've maybe not even thought about it yet.
Für mich zusammenfassend, Elrond, für mich persönlich die Nummer 1. Du hast es geschafft, dass du die Blockchain in die Real Life ja überführt hast. Das heißt, Elrond ist in der Real Life angekommen und wird noch viel mehr in der Real Life ankommen werden. Von dem her bedanke ich mich recht herzlich für die sehr interessanten Eindrücke und vielleicht auch definitiv für die zukünftigen Aussichten, was noch kommen wird. Freut mich sehr, dass du dir die Zeit genommen hast. Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Yeah, so very, very excited to meet you and have this conversation. And also very, very curious to see how the next steps will pan out in Germany. Think this is the right time to have these conversations, be alive and push for global adoption.
Vielen Dank, danke dir.
Thank you.